Hey guys, welcome back to Freestyle Unlimited. We've got another off-the-water tech video for you today. We're actually going to be working on the 550 build. I've been meaning to do this video or this maintenance on this ski for a long time now. This ski is 650 swapped with the original 550 pump, but it still has a 15.5 degree impeller in it, and we are going to address that. So in this video, we are going to go ahead and go through all the steps to remove the jet pump, and we might actually get the impeller pulled out. We'll see how difficult it is, but we're going to go through pulling the jet pump. The overall goal of today is getting that out, getting the impeller removed, and we're going to get that sent off to Impros to get it repitched to hopefully an 18.5 or a 19 degree impeller so that we can actually put down the power that we're making with the 650 motor. So that's today's video. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so I've got the ski in a good position here. I'm gonna get a light set up so that we've got a better angle and you guys can see what I'm doing here. But ultimately our first step is gonna be removing this ride plate here, and that'll give us access to the full pump. So some of you guys might be asking why I need to change the prop pitch. That's because with such a short prop pitch, when you add more power to it, it actually over rotates the prop to the point where you end up with what's called cavitation, where you're now spinning and the water is, instead of flowing through the prop and being pushed out the back, it is simply sitting in there. The pump spins up, or the prop spins up on the drive shaft due to the higher power motor, but it can't pull water in fast enough, and it can't process the water fast enough to actually get it through the jet pump and build thrust for you. So when you increase the pitch on the prop, then you're able to slow down, I guess, the aggression of the water being pushed. So in theory, you'll lose torque on the bottom end, I guess. You'll actually gain it back with the motor. So it's really interesting how the prop pitch affects the motor and how you actually put power down, because you can have a very powerful motor, but if you can't actually process the water to give yourself thrust, then there's no point. So that's kind of the overarching reason why we're doing this. And I've been meaning to do it because right now the ski, when you accelerate, there's no acceleration. It just sits there and you can hear it spin up, but it doesn't really go anywhere. So we are hoping to add a little bit of speed to it, make this thing more fun. I just did all the handling mods on it, including all of the Pro Watercraft stuff, as I showed you guys in the Meet the Fleet video. So it's got all the handling mods now, but we just need to have a little bit more speed, a little bit more acceleration. Really, it's just getting the ski out of the pocket on the low end and kind of getting it on a plane, because right now it's not very much fun to ride, if I'm being honest. So let me get a light set up under here. We'll get to removing the ride plate and we'll get started on this. Alrighty, so starting off here, I've got a couple Allen heads here that I will be removing. So I will probably fast forward through this just so I don't bore you guys with having to watch every single bolt being pulled out. But I'm gonna have to grab a razor blade and cut this. Alrighty, so we're gonna come in here, we're gonna cut our silicone, let us separate it from the body of the ski. There we go. This side, cut out a little bit. It also helps kind of keep the plate on. Sometimes with the vibrations that you deal with on these skis, I've actually seen them wiggle loose, and we'll lose bolts out of the ride plate. And I've actually had friends lose their ride plate at the lake. So you can see there's some silicone on there. These things are actually really cool. They're like an ABS material, so they're not metal. The downside to that is they do scrape, and they do actually take material away occasionally if you're beaching your ski or loading it or moving around on the ground. Now that we've got that off, we've got access to our jet pump. You can see this is actually an aftermarket steering nozzle and reduction nozzle from Ocean Pro. Let me go wide angle here. Like I said, aftermarket steering nozzle, aftermarket reduction nozzle. We have our two cooling lines here that will feed water to our motor. And we've got our whole jet pump assembly here, which is what we're going to be pulling out because this is what houses our impeller. It should be right inside of here. This is where all the magic happens. So we're going to pull the ride plate out. We are going to give ourselves access to, we've got one hex nut there. We've got, Allen key. We've got another one up here. I'll have to pull the steering cable off of here. And then we should have two more. You can kind of see them. They're back here in the back. So we'll get those 4 pulled out and that should give us access. I'm gonna have to remove the cooling lines and we'll get those out of the way and we'll come back and take a look at our bolts before we get them pulled out. All right, so I got my cooling lines off of here. These would just normally go here. This pressurizes from the jet pump, loops around, feeds it back into the motor. Same thing on this side because I am running dual cooling, which is not stock. I ended up running a secondary line through the hull here for additional cooling when I did the 650 swap. But now we can kind of see our bolts up there. We've got one in the back, right where I'm pointing at. We've got one up here, which is on top of their steering cable, which these are super easy to disconnect. They are actually just a little slide back sleeve. And then normally they just pop right off, but of course this one's gonna be difficult, but I'll get it off and I'll show you guys. And then we'll pretty much be good to take the jet pump out. I will be pulling this intake grate off though, really quick though. And I'll update you once we get the steering off and we get the intake grate off. Got all of the hardware out of this. This is actually an aftermarket intake grate. It's made by, I believe, Jet Dynamics. Yeah, and so what this does is it actually allows, this is my favorite style, I should say, for pretty much any ski. But this essentially pulls water here and loads the top of the pump so that you've got it coming in here. And then this scoop also feeds the bottom of the pump. So you get a little bit better loading of the pump, a little more evenly water flows to the top, which sometimes can help with the cavitation issue. That's why I actually put this on there. To try and alleviate some of that, but it didn't work, obviously, because I've got such a short prop. That's why we're doing this, but these are awesome. I love, they're called top loaders. Some people call them top loaders, some people call them scoop grates, but definitely a big plus. It'll also help keep the ski planted on the water when you are riding. I have the same style on my Superjet, actually. But yeah, here we are. We've got our intake grate off. You can kind of see, grab the light here. You can see our impeller in here, right there, 15.5. They're gonna rebuild that whole thing for me. So let's get this out of the ski. And just another little note on our steering cables. This is actually how most of the Kawasaki and Yamaha cables work. There is a ball up here, as you can see. So it allows pivoting and movement. And then this is our actual cable, and it's got this little sleeve that slides back. The ball slips into that little cup and then it locks onto the shaft of the ball. So super easy. I should also note that this pump has been shimmed. So as you can see, there are some small stainless shims up here between the pump housing, nozzle, and the body. That's gonna keep it level with the motor. And you actually shim it and then it goes to the mid shaft. The drive shaft goes all the way into the mid shaft, which is already shimmed. So we are going to make sure that those shims end up back in the same place when we go back together. But yeah, so always make sure if you're pulling your jet pump out that if it is shimmed, if you don't plan to reshim it and it doesn't need to be reshimmed, that you keep track of where these are located. They will only be back on these back holes, and that allows adjustment up and down from the back, and it'll move where your drive shaft meets your mid shaft. So we're going to be doing that. Just make sure your shims stay in the right place. Alrighty, so I've got our 2 front pump bolts and our 2 rear pump bolts out. Now you can see there's a little bit of play in this, which I'm super happy about, which means this probably shouldn't be a giant pain to get out. This is usually the fighting point for a lot of people, is getting the pump shoe out. But I'm gonna get my shims out. We're gonna make sure we get those put aside the way they need to be. I'm just gonna leave them up here actually, because the ski is probably not gonna move until I get it put back together. And this other one, we'll get these shims out of here. Just like this. just like that. And now comes the fun part, which I will actually have you guys watch. We cut our silicone here. Cool. A lot of people will run a sealer called 1211. If I ever saw that on the pump, I would probably just not try and pull it out. There we go. That is it. That is our jet pump removal for the 550, which honestly, with how smoothly that went, I wish I would have done that a lot sooner. But here we are. I'm going to take you guys over the bench and I'll give you guys a walkthrough. Alrighty, so this is our jet pump. This is where all the magic happens. So how this works is we get our drive shaft from our motor that rotates with the crankshaft, comes into our impeller and spins. And as our impeller spins, we're pulling lake water through here. It's cutting through the lake water and forcing it into what's called your stator, which I will show you when we get this broken open. But essentially it'll go through your stator, which will kind of create better flow with the water, and it'll come out your jet nozzle. So we will tear this down and I'll give you a better walkthrough. But again, this is it. That's it. That's your whole jet pump. Very simple. There are maybe a dozen bolts that hold it together in whole. So we'll get it torn down and I'll show you guys exactly what everything looks like. All right, so we're gonna get to tearing this down. I'm gonna use a couple 10 mils. Going to be our impeller housing. It's actually not in too bad of a shape. There's some dings on the leading edge from sucking up rocks and whatnot, but this is a stainless ring, wear ring, inside of an aluminum housing. So what can happen is, due to the dissimilar metals, these can swell and corrode and lock your motor up. So you definitely, when you're looking at skis, you want to check these, make sure that there hasn't been any major contact here. This one looks okay enough. I'll probably end up reusing this. Maybe clean up a little bit of that leading edge there, but that doesn't have me too worried. This actually looks in pretty good shape. It looks freshly machined, so there's some dirt and grime in there, but nothing too crazy. So we are going to leave that, and then here is our impeller. So we've got a Scat Track 15.5 that is bent like crazy. This thing is not doing well. This thing has seen much better days. And holy crap. Well, we're gonna get this off and I'm gonna show you something really interesting about this stator. I'm probably gonna need a new jet pump assembly. So that is not cool, but whatever. I'm glad we're finding that out now. This definitely has something to do with the runnability issues. I'm sure we've sucked up rocks and really damaged this thing. You can see in here some of these splines, like right down here. This should be up here and flush, but it's actually broken off. So we'll get a better look once we get the impeller off. The steering nozzle should just come off. Yeah, we'll get it apart. Alright, so we are just going to tap this apart here. There's a little lip I can catch on. There we go. Alright. Just pins out. So this is our jet pump, which forces water through the stator, which is that thing I was showing you a little bit earlier, into a reduction nozzle. This one is actually, I believe this one's been bored out. I don't remember. I bought it with the Ocean Pro nozzle, which is honestly, it's kind of a gimmick in my opinion, but it's supposed to help with flow, direct the flow of the actual water while you're riding. That's why it has this little divider here to help try and laminate the flow or cause laminar flow. But nothing too crazy. It's essentially a funnel and a nozzle for steering. So very basic. So that, starting at our back, Then we've got our stator, which has all of these fins, which as the water gets forced into it, it actually just kind of, the water gets pushed down, and the stator uses these fins going in the opposite direction. So as we're rotating here, think of the water being pushed backwards, but rotating. So it essentially takes the water that's being forced down by these blades, and it kind of evens it out to push it straight back rather than having turbulence in the pump. And then it comes out the backside, which is a little cone to help also create flow within the water, and that'll go to our reduction nozzle. So these will sit like that. So it'll help kind of just build a better force. But that's it. Let me see if I can get this thing in a vise or something and try and get this this prop off. We'll see. I'm gonna open this thing up on this side and see how the bearings look as well. So we'll do that really quick. Milky. Definitely some old grease in there. I don't know the last time this thing was open, but not great. Looks like we've probably had some water intrusion. So it's a really good thing that we are addressing this. What in the world is that? That is our leak. We've got a cap in here that, to my knowledge, should be pressed in somewhere, and it is currently not. Let's see if I can get this thing out of here. Yep. So there is a plug. Let's clean off for you guys. So yeah, this ski might actually be way more fun next season. I didn't really anticipate running into any additional issues other than the impeller, so now I'm going to need some other parts. But I actually am not sure what this is. This is just a little Delrin, probably a seal of some sort that should be in there. I'm actually not the most familiar with these specific pumps. Now you can see this is what our drive shaft fits into. You can see the big splines in there. That's what helps rotate the pump. So as these get in there, they rotate with that, which just spins the impeller without spinning the entire housing here. So I'm not really sure how to go about getting this thing out now. These pumps are all put together with just a couple bearings. But this pump is looking a little rough, so we might need to actually put some money into this thing and get it in pump housing and rebuild it, which isn't bad for you guys because you guys get to learn. I just wasn't anticipating doing that. But now we've got some more video ideas, I guess. Nothing too crazy. Little shim washer. And our Koyo bearings, which actually the bearings don't feel bad, which is really surprising. They feel pretty darn great. So I might just clean this thing out and re-grease it and reuse it, but I can't. I've got to get a new stator because this one is absolutely destroyed. So that's probably going to be all that we can do today because I will need a prop removal tool that I'll have to borrow from a friend of mine who I know does a lot of 550 stuff, and I don't really feel the need to buy one. But and then we'll get this off and we'll kind of go over the whole process that they do in the next video. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys following the channel, and you know, like and subscribe and keep up with the channel so that you can find more videos like this. I'm going to be doing a lot of tech videos this winter on building and a lot of riding in the summer, and hopefully very little tech videos and how-tos in the summer. But stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next video.